just love our introduction. I really do. It's so artsy and creative and so fun and non-lawyer ish, really. And that's what we're trying to do, people. There's so many aspects of who we are and being a lawyer. But anyway, welcome everybody to As the Law Turns. Welcome back. Hello to our new people. We're having some things going on. Let me explain the two things that are going on. We're having some internet frozen issues, and I'm having some face issues. I don't know why. I don't know, about a week ago, I don't know. I contacted this thing called Bell's palsy. And what it is a neurological attack. I don't know if it's a virus or a bacteria that attacks the face. And so I shouldn't give attention to it, but our listeners are smart. One eyebrow raises, the other eyebrow doesn't. Wink one eye, can't wink the other
Hold
one.
on, Judge.
Uh-oh.
I keep going in and out. Um, I'm missing like every other word you're saying. Hey
Wow.
guys, we are unfortunately starting late because I've been having technical difficulties. There appears to be some form of internet interruption in my area. So, like, literally, my phone isn't connecting, my iPad, my computer, any electronic device that I have been trying to connect over the last almost 20 minutes now has not connected. Um, I'm praying it stays stable, but every time the judge speaks, I miss like every other word.
Wow. And I can hear
um,
you completely, totally. I hear everything you're saying completely.
oh,
Everything. Everything.
you can't
I
you
can hear
okay? I caught can hear.
everything.
You can
Everything.
hear me.
Every word.
I don't like this.
I know.
I don't like it at all.
I
I
know.
don't know. I don't really want to do a show like this and give you guys inadequate stuff. Can you guys hear us clearly? Are we breaking up? Can someone comment? I do see people on. So can someone comment to tell us if you can hear us clearly? I hate that we're 10 minutes behind and also we're having this trouble. Um, I've really tonight's topic is really exciting and I have a lot to talk about. So I don't want to dive in it and then we miss too much. Okay. Thank you so much, Sister Sawyer. So Judge, speak again. Let me see if I can hear you again. Let's see if we can make it work.
Okay. I want to welcome back our previous listeners and welcome. Hello. Oh, I can hear everything. Everything you're saying. You can't hear me. Uh-oh. You are frozen. Well, can someone communicate to Judge Vivian that I can hear her clearly? And I was trying to communicate to her private
Okay.
chat. I can hear you clearly, but you are freezing.
Hey. Oy vey. So guys, I don't know if we can complete the show like this. And we all know how I love to have my things done in the most professional of light. Um, I keep freezing. Okay, we may be up.
Thank you, Miss Thelma Taylor
Okay, so
Sawyer.
tonight we're going to talk about COVID. This is likely going to have to be a two-part series because of the technical difficulties we've been having in this particular showing. So Judge and I will definitely do this again. For those of you that are new, As the Law Turns, great show. We've been on for about 8 months now, because we started in January. No, 11 months.
Wow.
It's been a year. Yay.
Yay.
Share with all of your friends, tag your people, let them know that we're on, because tonight we're talking about, can your employer fire you for not getting your COVID shot? A lot of people have been talking about this issue. This issue has been up in the air since the COVID shots were released. And a lot of employers are not excited that their employees will not get the shot. So they started mandating these. And that mandate is that if you decide you don't want to take the COVID shot, well, then we're not going to let you work here. A lot of people have been screaming, that's not fair, it's not legal. And we figured we'd try to answer that question as best we could tonight. So we did some research. I looked at some case law. I looked at the actual federal administration COVID mandate. And then I looked at my state. For those that don't know, Judge and I live in the state of Florida. And so we'll likely discuss deeper meanings based off of the state of Florida. So, Judge, you want to hit us off?
Yes, there's some local mandates. There's some county mandates. Local mandates, some county mandates, some state mandates, and some federal mandates. President Joe Biden has issued a federal mandate that deals with the federal government. Now, what happens when the federal government issues a mandate, the state and county and local municipalities find some of their strength and knowledge and arguments for what the federal government is doing. The federal mandate may not reach your local employees like McDonald's or Joe's Crab Shack, to name a few, or your neighbor or the lawn service. But some people look at the federal mandate to say, this is what I can do and what I can't do. So President Biden, the big federal mandate, it says, if you do business with the United States government, you contractors and subcontractors, your employees must be vaccinated by, I think it's a January 18th date. That federal mandate says that fully vaccinated. That means vaccinated 2 weeks before that mandate takes effect. So in essence, by January, I think 4th, you must have your second shot if you're the Moderna Pfizer, or the only shot from Johnson. Therefore, it's effective by the mandate date of the 18th. So that's the federal government. That federal government track is a little different from the state track that we may be talking about in Florida. Once again, we may have to have another thing on this, but the federal government, it says, this is what we need to do. President Biden said he's using the Federal Property and Administrative Services Act, as a short name is like FPSA, Federal Property Mandated Short Act. One federal court has said, you have gone too far. We understand your concerns about safety and health, but under that authority, you have gone too far. That doesn't mean that the mandate will fail. That means you can't do it under that current law. And so now that means sometimes these local states and hospitals, municipalities, and say, wait a minute, the federal government is losing that argument. So this, like Halifax Hospital, is now draw our mandate back because there's some we're talking about a federal mandate and we're talking about state and local mandates. Right now, one federal district court has said to President Biden, you can't do this. The other federal district courts have not weighed in on it, and the Supreme Court has not weighed in on it. That's kind of how things progress through the system. Someone issues a mandate, opinion, or a rule or authority. Someone fights it. It's called the plaintiff or the petitioner. And that plaintiff petitioner goes to court against the defendant or the respondent, and the federal court makes a decision. Now, one federal court makes a decision. Basically, it's an issue of, and one court has decided something, especially on the state level, that becomes kind of mandatory for all courts because the other courts have not issued a ruling. So right now it stands that the federal court has ruled that says, Biden, you have gone too far. Now, are the states going to follow suit? Is Halifax Hospital, Burger King, McDonald's, or your local car dealership going to follow suit? I don't know. What's the argument? A lot of arguments. Privacy rights, gone too far. You don't have authority to do this. You're mandating something that doesn't protect the greater interest. So in the history of law, I'm not going to get too technical. The history of law, and Judge Vivian and I have talked about this before. These how laws are kind of made. This is what happens. Somebody does something, and someone says, you don't have authority to do that. And we wind up going to court, and some court issues a decision. Most things do not reach the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court decides issues, big issues, issues of constitutional law. When people say, I'm going to take you all the way to the Supreme Court because, your dog pooped on my rose garden. That's not a big enough issue with the Supreme Court to attack. And so what we're talking about is federal mandate, what the state's going to do, and maybe what the local municipalities are going to do. I'm watering, sorry. Can you hear me, Judge Vivian?
No. She's so right. She is so right. That's exactly what's happening here. I got a chance to read a law review article about everything, and it was kind of enlightening. It talked about addressing the implications of the emergency use authorization for a lot of the employers being able to use the COVID shot, but many think that it is illegal that they mandate it. I do know that Florida just recently banned employees from being able to do so. So it's been a quite interesting take on this whole idea. I know that Disney at one point had talked to their union and their workers, and the workers were okay with it. And so Disney had mandated that everyone had to get the COVID shot. However, since November, when Governor DeSantis in our state determined that that wasn't something that they were able to do, Disney has now put a pause on it. Although, from my understanding of it, it appears that Disney was following what he was stating by his mandate. His mandate says that you can ask them if they've gotten the COVID shot. His mandate says that you can pretty much in a way request it of them. But if they wanted to go under the American Disability Act, the ADA, or they wanted to go under religious beliefs, or I believe if they were pregnant or trying to be pregnant, like in vitro, or some medical reason, they could opt out. And it was supposed to lessen the risk of being fired. But most states, like Florida, are at-will states. So it's possible that they could just fire him for COVID and not say, I fired you for COVID. And then you can't challenge it because they don't really have to tell you that they fired you specifically for COVID.
And at will means,
I think it's, as Judge stated, it's up in the air, and no one's fully decided this issue in the judicial branch yet. It's still kind of like, I do know that they did. One judge did tell President Biden that his bill was unconstitutional. But there is still, some schools of thought out there in judgeships and trial courts and smaller authorities, as the judge was saying, that are thinking that it's okay and saying that it's fine. What's interesting, though, Judge, I read this law review article
What's interesting about it is it also suggests that they use other alternative methods, such as allowing them to work remotely from home or quarantining them within their office space. What do you think about that?
Oh, wow. The scarlet letter comes to mind. You don't have to do what I asked you to do, but you're going to have this big red S on your shirt and brand to say you're not compliant. And so everybody else that has the COVID shot and vaccine and waving the American flag, almost you're un-American because whatever reason, your personal, religious, theocratic, whatever reason, and people are not going to ask that. They'll just say, you know, Judge Vivian doesn't have the shot, or Judge Dorner doesn't have the shot. And it's hard because when we're working on a fear-based knowledge or problem, it's hard to think rationally and legally. The only thing that kind of comes to mind that I can think of automatically is the pork and the food in jail. A lot of people say, "Oh, sorry, I'm on a radio show. Everything's okay." Okay, I'll talk to you later. I'll talk to you later. I'm sorry, that's my dad. Um, the people in jail. There are some people that, for religious belief, says I can't eat pork or I have to pray sometime today. And every time you make an exception for religious belief or personal belief or medical reasons, there's always somebody that's going to skirt the system. Always somebody is going to abuse it. I'm not saying it's good or bad, religious belief or not religious belief, exempt is not religious, but I'm saying when you start exempting something for religious belief, wow. And so my religion, the church of what's happening now, says I can't do the COVID vaccine. Uh, I'm sorry. Let me. Yes, what it feels. I am on the air. What's going on my show?
Exactly. So it affects a lot of different people, and I think it should be addressed in that respect. I see a comment. Let me see. Simone River says, my kid's speech therapist may lose his job. I'm going to show this. May lose his job because he is not vaccinated for religious issues. This doesn't just affect the individual, it affects their clients. Agreed. There are many professions in which this kind of overdrawn or harsh rule. And then who's to judge it being harsh? It determines on who you're talking to. I'm not gonna sway on either side of this tonight, guys, because I'm kind of in between. I go back and forth a little bit myself, and I listen to both schools of thought. So I'm just looking to listen to what everybody else has to say. So feel free to comment, drop your comments, ask your questions. We'll answer and ask the best we can. But it does leave that question, Simone. I agree with you. How does it affect the other people that are involved or implicated possibly by the firing of specialty people like therapists and doctors and nurses because of such a heavy mandate? So I understand what you're saying there. Someone thought, though, that the remote option would be good because a lot of businesses are still on a hybrid model right now due to COVID spikes in a lot of new cities recently in a few of the states. I know in Florida alone, there have been 3.69 million cases and apparently 61,548 deaths. This is a basic Google search. So if Google's wrong, I'm sorry, guys. I'm reading from Google right now. The United States says that it's 48.1 million cases and 777,000 deaths. So we know that this is a big deal. The question is, how best do we get things done? How best does the government do this? Now, I'm going to give a quick lesson in civics. Political science was one of my majors in school. And so I'm going to give a quick lesson in civics because a lot of people have been saying, well, how does DeSantis and some of the other states that are suing the federal government right now, how do they get away with suing the federal government if the federal government is their governing system? Quick lesson in civics. So we have a bicameral system, as we call it, bi meaning two. We have a bicameral system. And I like to give it the colloquial or kind of phrase or a lighthearted phrase of you have parents and you have kids. Now, the states aren't like 6-year-old children that, you need to make heavy decisions for on a consistent basis as to what they eat, what they wear, and where they go. The states are more like 17, 18-year-old children that are still living in your house. They have some decent common sense. You've taught them enough. You're not checking over their shoulder to say, hey, you shouldn't wear that all the time. You're not checking over their shoulder all the time to find out where they are. You're not, as long as they come back safe and they kind of check in with you every now and again, you're okay with that, right? That's kind of how the system of the government works. And that's one of the best ways, I think, to explain it to people. The parents are the national or the federal government, and the children are the states. And so there are some times in which you're going out, you're doing your own thing. So the states each have their own constitution. And the state's constitution is to be followed by the people of that state. Now, if the federal government hasn't said anything about it, then you must follow the rules of your state's constitution. Period. Even if someone were to say, well, if I was in another state, that wouldn't be the case. Sorry, you're not in that state. You have to follow the rules of each particular state. Therefore, when things like this happen and the states are fighting, oh, I don't think you should do this, and the siblings are fighting, the children are fighting, mom and dad, the federal government has to come in and say, no, this is what we're going to do. And that's kind of what happened when President Biden decide to put down the vaccination mandate.
And
he was coming in and saying, no, this is what we're going to do.
And then if you don't do it.
Now the other states are mad, like children get when their parents put their foot down, and they're rebelling by suing the federal government, just like when kids get mad at their parents and they go in their room and they slam the door and they don't want to talk to them. So that's kind of what's happening here. We're governed by two systems. You still have to follow your state's laws, however, which is one thing that Disney's running into conflict with right now with their mandate for COVID. They want to follow the state's laws because they live in the state of Florida, but the federal government has issued an ability for them to bring down these mandates. So it's kind of an interesting topic that I don't think we're going to be able to resolve anytime soon, if I'm honest about it. We've been talking about vaccinations and stuff with the measles and all these diseases for decades.
And if you don't do what the parents have to do, your time out is called federal funding. I can get you because of the federal funding. I can't make you do anything, but I can withhold benefits like schools and road improvement. And they've done the same thing with abortions and speed limits and gun rights, and the parents saying, I know what's best for you citizens. You're 17 and 18 years old and you just don't know everything. I like to do a lot, but right now I'm going to step in and say, this is not what's best for you. And that's a good example about the 17 or 18-year-old. You're not 12, you're not 13. You're a really smart, advanced AP 17 or 18-year-old, but you're 17 and I'm the federal government, I'm the parent. And so what they're saying, you don't get these federal fundings. You don't get the contracts. If you don't, subcontractors and contractors, if you don't have your people vaccinated by January 18, you just don't work for us. The National Guard. If you're a member of the National Guard, you're going to lose your benefits, your standing, probably ability for housing, retirement, maybe medical stuff because you're not vaccinated. Now, Ms. Grover, Simone Grover makes a good point. It affects their clients. It affects everybody. Whether you're mandated, not mandated, vaccinated, not vaccinated, that's kind of the good and bad about living in these United States. What you do affects me. Just like a good example, I can say maybe the right to privacy. Your right to privacy, your right to do what you want to do in your house only extends to the fact that it affects my right, because we're not an island. We're everybody together. And so if my speech therapist is not vaccinated. It affects my child. Now it affects me because my child needs speech therapy. It affects my purse. But if she's not vaccinated and she is vaccinated and she gets sick or doesn't get sick, it affects me anyway. I'm not taking a stand on whether she needs to get vaccinated or not. I'm saying sometimes these decisions are really hard because we're dealing with emotions. We're dealing with the effects of other people and other children. And the best example I can use is your right to privacy, vaccinated or not vaccinated, only extends to the fact that it encroaches on my right to privacy. If you don't want to be vaccinated, maybe I shouldn't have you at a public school because I'm vaccinated and I'm safe. And you choose not to be vaccinated. You can do that, but your right not to be vaccinated and now infringes my right. I have to wear this mask all the time. I'm taking my temperature all the time. I'm wearing gloves all the time. I'm just supposing. But yes, I agree with you. It affects their clients and everybody else, everybody. But that's kind of how laws are changed and not changed. The right to marry, the right to abortion, gun rights, housing rights, taxes. Yes, it affects everybody. We're not in isolation. And so it affects. Now, there are governments that says we do. It's communists and socialists or whatever. We do it. And it doesn't matter if it affects you or not. You just fall in line. But in our democratic system and what we do, yeah, whatever you do, domino effects, it's going to affect most people down the line. And that's what the Constitution is kind of saying. Your right to do something stops when it starts affecting me. I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yeah, this is one of those tough answers. And I know somebody's going to disagree with me, but you're here to listen to our opinion. So I would say that at this particular junction, I believe that it is legal at this particular junction of the way the government's working. I believe that it is legal for your job to mandate these vaccines. In a way, taking that into consideration, all of the things that the statutes have been saying, even with DeSantis's new legislation, they can request it strongly, urge it, suggest it, propaganda it, but give you the religious belief of way out. They can let you opt out through the ADA. They can let you opt out through other health or medical reasons. Or they can rectify or give you what they would consider a reasonable way as to not to affect your job, because that's what DeSantis's legislation says. Or is there any other reasonable way? By forcing you to work remotely from home. Once again, I kind of agree with what Judge is saying, that gives you the scarlet letter thing, but I also think about it like this. So many people have been working from home. There's still a lot of businesses that are in the hybrid model. It may not necessarily, some people may be working from home, even if we weren't concerned about the COVID shot. Let's talk about those people that are just sick. So they have been working from home for those purposes. So right now, I would say the strongest way of saying it is yes, in a way they can mandate it currently under the current legal structure. But is the word mandate the right word to use? And is it that picky when it comes down to legislation that we have to use specific words? Absolutely. Attorneys, legislation, politicians are all about the verbiage. And Simone says, if they can mandate this, what's next? Let me tell you, the government's been mandating things on everybody for a very long time. We just haven't been paying attention.
There's always been mandates. Who you can marry, who you can't marry.
There's so many things that come into effect. I mean, many people don't think about the fact that the DUI statute is extremely intrusive. Yeah. The DUI statute tells you that you have to get a test of your breath on the side of the road because someone else's objective opinion thinks that you're impaired. And then if they think that you didn't surpass that test or that test reads 0, now they get a chance to ask you to go urinate in a cup, or they can go ask a request to have your blood drawn. All very invasive measures that, frankly, are currently legal.
And they have mandated, just like Judge Vivian said.
It's a weird place to be, guys. It's 300 million people in the United States alone. And there's one guy and then a team of 100. And then what are we at, 435 now in the House, Judge?
I think.
And those people are mandating the livelihoods of over 300 million people.
But that's different from injecting foreign substances in your body. Well, they mandate vaccines for school. They've always done that. I think I remember being in 3rd or 4th grade, mandatory tuberculosis shot in the cafeteria, lined up like cattle. Boom, boom, boom. We've always done that. Like Judge Vivian said, we don't think about it because we're new to this. You've been mandated to do a lot of things. Mandatory taxes, mandatory flu shots. And insurance companies don't insure you unless you do this. People don't hire you unless you do this. We have mandatory, and I understand this is a little different because there's foreign substances in your body. The insurance company says, if you smoke, we're not going to insure you. So you're depriving me my right to smoke? No, you can smoke if you want to. I'm just not going to insure you. And so we've always done that. I don't know if it's good or bad. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but it's always a hot topic, emotional, when it's fear-based or medical-based. The Roe versus Wade argument has been gone on forever. I'm going to take your funding if you do abortions. I'm not going to take your funding. A woman's right to fruits. Does a man have a right? It's always an issue when it comes to personal invasion in my body. And it's hard to govern, because if I'm left without law, I could almost find any law to support almost anything that I want to do. And one judge is sitting there and saying, it's constitutional because it falls within your power. Why do you say that? Because that's what I feel. That's what I want, because I'm scared, because I have kids. Now I can tell you how to keep your guns in your house, where to keep your guns, what guns to have, because school shootings. So I can tell you as a parent what to do with your guns. If not, I can arrest you and hold you in jail and hold you in prison. That's your parents, that's your gun, but I can do that. And sometimes it's fear-based. And as a judge, I can tell you 14 years, sometimes the decision is, it's right because I say it's right. Because I have to make a decision.
Yeah.
At the Supreme Court, those people have to make a decision. And their decision becomes the law. It becomes fact. When I say it's within President Biden's power, it's because it's within that power because I said so. That's it.
Yeah.
Because I said so.
That's always a tough thing too, Judge, as you was just mentioning, when emotions get involved. And I just read off 777,000 people calculated to have passed or died from COVID so far. So definitely this is an emotional thing for most people. And I actually even question whether we're still in the law review article I read, and I'm gonna actually name the law review article I read. It was written by it's the Mitchell Hamlin Law Review, and it says, can employers mandate the COVID vaccine, assessing the implications of the emergency use authorization. Now, this is an older law review, and by older I mean it was earlier within this year, if I'm not mistaken. And so it still has some moments of relevance now that we're at the end of the year. And that's what I think I question here. Are we even still under the emergency use authorization, which is another part of government that comes into effect when it comes down to vaccinations and how they work? And if it is, in times of emergency, the government, exerts their power a little stronger. The mommy and daddy, essentially, the federal government, exerts their power a little stronger with a little less care about the tantrums of the children. So it kind of puts you into that kind of, and yeah, I see Ariel, it says that Pfizer is a fully approved by the FDA, which generally takes us out of the emergency. But there are other things that can trigger it, such as how many deaths are happening, consistent rise, the fact that there is a new variant out right now that Pfizer's drug doesn't cover. So it begs me to believe or think about the fact that we could now be moving back into an emergency. And then what do we do? The government's just gonna, I think, likely do what it always does when in times of need, it steps in as the parents and it says, hey, I know you're old enough to make your own decisions. You're smart and capable individuals. However, I'm mom and dad, and this is what I say, and this is what's going to happen. I know the numbers are spiking in those variants as well. And at least as of my latest reading, there are no drugs that have completed the test of that variant yet entirely, or the multiple variants that are coming up, because it's not one variant, if I'm not mistaken. There are at least more than one variant out there right now. So are we going to end up being back under an emergency use?
Well,
it's a really tough question. But like I said, for now, I honestly believe that the statute and the law does allow, not mandating, but forcing with strong pushes. Yes, you either take this shot or we fire you.
Which, sorry, and I mean, I'm sorry, my mask here. As far as the contract, when I was hired, was that a part of my contract? Can the federal government change it right now? Well, emergency use. It may not, things change. I didn't know about COVID a year and a half ago, Ms. Fields, and now the parent and said, we need to change a little bit. We need to change. There was no COVID when I first got this contract, and I'm going to modify this contract a little bit because I need to. Now, let me say this before we leave. The fact Pfizer is fully approved by the FDA, I don't think that's some people's issues. Fully approved or not, like Ms. Grover said, you're injecting a foreign substance in my body against my will and wishes. Approved or not, I don't want to do that. There's a thing called cigarettes that you approved, federal government, and then there's $1 million of lawsuit because your approval didn't work. You approved beef and chicken and whatever, get sick and people. So I don't care about your approval, federal government. I don't want the stuff in my body. I don't want the stuff. And it's odd. It's a personal decision. I'm fully vaccinated, and I want to get my booster as soon as I can. For me, it's not a mandate. It's a personal decision that I want to do. I can't impose it on you. I'm uncomfortable around you with not your vaccine, but I wear my mask all the time anyway. So I really don't care if you're vaccinated or not, because I'm responsible for our own personal safety. And so if you don't want to be vaccinated, I guess that's your decision. But what about the school kids that have no choice? What about the bus drivers? What about the restaurant workers? I don't know. I'm retired, so I can stay home all day if I want to, vaccinated or I'm not vaccinated. And once again, what you do or don't do affects all of us. I don't like wearing my mask all the time, but for those who don't want to get vaccinated and don't want to be mandated vaccinated, I have to deal with the consequences of other people's decisions. I don't live on an island, and I'm going to get my booster as soon as I can. That's my personal choice and decision. But the news is saying that the variant is because of those who are not vaccinated.
There's a lot of different things in this. Ms. Williams mentioned that the news is saying that the variant is because of those who are not vaccinated.
I've heard that. I've heard a couple of reports that the variant has mutated in the non-vaccinated person. It's not a new substance. It's mutated within the system of the non-vaccinated person, which is interesting. Sometimes science, I'm not a scientist, sometimes science can read what I want it to read because I'm against vaccinations or I want vaccinations. Sometimes the law against me or for me because it's a personal decision. I want it, I don't want it. So I don't know. but I've heard that that variant is not a new variant. It's modified and
Skew tests.
within the person. Miss Williams said there's so much
skew tests.
Yes.
You can skew a test to see what you want it to be. So, guys, I hate to say it, but I do think at this point there is some legality to it. I will say that most states are at will, so they can fire you whether you get the COVID shot or they just don't like your color of your shirt that day, in all honesty. And we have definitely gone over time. I knew this was going to happen on this particular conversation. We will likely have to address it again because if I'm not mistaken, there is going to be some new movement on the states suing the federal government for this new mandate. So this is going to be, changing up and down for a while. Feelings are involved. Millions of lives are involved. This is one of those tough things that isn't going to be resolved overnight. But can your office fire you currently because you're not vaccinated? My school of thought, from the way I'm reading the legislation, from the way I'm understanding it, my answer is going to be yes. Like I said, they maybe can't say the specific words of I am forcing you and or mandating you to do such, but we strongly suggest it or your position may not be here. And there's not much you can do about it at this point, except join, I guess, a class action lawsuit. So this is an interesting topic. I'm glad we got a chance to talk about it. It was a lot of great comments tonight. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Please leave our comments. Share. I mean, share. Like, come on, guys. You are all on tonight and you loved it because you were commenting. So if you like it, somebody else might like it. So feel free to share and to share. Like our page, share our videos. We're also on YouTube. So if you got a friend that says, oh, I don't have a Facebook.
And once again, I don't know, you caught it. I contacted this thing called Bell's palsy, which is a virus that attacks the face. And that's why my eye is watered and one eyebrow raises, the other one doesn't, and smile is quickened. But everything's well, all's well. And I'll be here next week again.
Bye, guys.
Bye.